This is Jets FM post-game coverage. A little late, but then again, so are the Jets on the Our Lads Football Network, and we're probably going to be doing these shows later and later, maybe Mondays. I think we've just discussed moving the Sunday shows to Mondays because why talk about a game day post-game coverage, Jan, when there's really nothing important to talk about? No.
Well, it's Monday. It's Monday afternoon. By the way, the Jets still haven't scored a point.
No, they haven't. That's because Joe Flacco is still out there, smiling on the sidelines and on the field,
and taking 28-yard sacks.
Yeah, he thinks he's Lamar Jackson. So we have some clips that we're going to go over in a few minutes from the press conference with Adam Gase. We'll talk a little bit about that after each one. But Jets lose 24-0, and no Darnold, no Becton. Mims looks like if he doesn't have any setbacks, he could be back in a week or two, which is a good sign because we saw already how much it helps to have Perryman out there. And, if a quarterback can actually throw the ball to him properly. And then, of course, Mosley will be back next year. Adoga and Lewis got injured during the game as well. And that's something that we'll talk about a little bit later, too. So, yeah, it's as ugly as it gets. But look, it is what it is. And nothing is going to change until, I will say this one thing. That's Joe Flacco did Sam Darnold an incredible favor by starting these last couple of games, including this game, because he made Sam Darnold look awfully good.
He did. The problem is a couple of fold. One, you don't see any growth at all in this team. It's almost like they're regressing to a certain extent, right? I know there's been a lot of chatter, and I'm sure we'll get into it more. We had suck for Sam years ago. Now they've become tank for Trevor. And just to make sure every Jet fan recognizes this, and I think they do, there is no guarantee Trevor Lawrence is coming out. So the worse this team looks, and the more that this team looks like it needs to have be resuscitated from the dead, Trevor Lawrence can stay in school for another year.
Yeah, of course,
we saw what happened with Peyton Manning. And Peyton Manning, part of that was a little different because if Bill Parcells, the rumor was that Parcells had said to Peyton, hey, we're going to make you our number one pick and we'll guarantee it. Manning was going to come out. He didn't get that guarantee, decided to stay another year in school. We all know what happened from there. Lawrence also has the capacity as a junior to stay another year and not necessarily have to come out. So before we start hitching our wagons to Trevor Lawrence being our savior, we need to recognize that there's no guarantee that he is coming out. But Trevor Lawrence in and of himself isn't necessarily going to turn around this team. We talked a lot about Joe Douglas taking over. There has to be questions in terms of his draft so far this year because, honestly, Bradley Mann has been the only guy from this draft that has really kind of produced other than Becton. Becton, unfortunately, has been out the last 2 weeks, and after playing a game where he probably should have sat on the sidelines and shouldn't have played given his injury. And Mann has been fine.
I'll tell you one thing. He's got to learn. He's at that stage, I think, of his early career where he has to learn how to play through pain. And I did the show a couple of weeks ago with Elaine Poupart. We do the Dolphin show every week. And one of the topics we talked about was Jarvis Landry. Not Jarvis Landry, Devontae Parker. And how Parker had freely admitted that the biggest obstacle early in his career was learning how to play through pain. And so much so that he got hurt in the game against Seattle, I believe. Left the game with like 2 catches for 11 yards, got hurt. Normally, he probably would have stayed out, gutted it out, went back on the field, and had like 7 receptions for 70 yards when he came back injured. So these are the things that young kids have got to learn during their process in the NFL. And I only say that because that's what Adam Gase says, and that's what the doctors are telling him. It's a pain threshold injury, and he's just got to learn how to deal with it.
True, but there's always obviously that diametrically opposed is pain. You can play through pain, you can't play through injury, right? And part of that is, as an athlete, you have to know as to whether or not you feel that you are at risk of re-injuring yourself. And psychologically, if you feel that way, it is training yourself to get through the pain as long as you're not necessarily risking yourself to further injury. And that's the delineation point where I don't necessarily know if we know where we're at because, he was supposed to be only dressed in an emergency situation. And then one series into the game, he's playing. Well, if you're only dressing in an emergency situation, I'm not quite sure if he was at that stage and probably should not have been put back in the game if you were only dressing in an emergency situation.
He didn't get injured. It's still a pain threshold injury. He didn't come into the game and he got hurt more And that's the reason he's out 2 more weeks. He can't play with it. He can't. He doesn't feel good when he plays with the injury. And that is, I tell you what, I think a lot of players, Becton and Parker are not the first, and they're not going to be the last. We see this, I think, every year a lot in the NFL. When you look at the injury reports in the NFL, which injury reports are absolutely inundated with players that are questionable, doubtful, can't play, missed a week. Those are the losing teams. The winning teams always seem to have like 6 or 7 guys. The losing teams have like 25 guys, and half of those guys probably would play if the team was winning.
Quite possibly. I mean, look, the Giants had yesterday. Darius Slayton was clearly hurt and injured, playing through a bad ankle and a foot, and ended up playing and re-aggravated the injury several times during the game. Came out, came back in, came out, came back in. Granted, he gutted out. The question you have to be concerned about is the guy doing himself more harm than good, and he has a risk the potential of further setbacks as opposed to maybe missing a week. Maybe now it's 3 weeks because you're recovering from an aggravation of an injury.
All right, so let's tell you what. Before we get to Gase, let's just quickly get through these. And it's interesting because last night I was actually going to pretty much start the show by talking about something that, again, we're going to get to the clip with Gase. One of the very first things he talked about, which was how the game began. And this is also why I try to tell anybody out there that listens to this show why we try to do things differently than just sit there and complain, bitch and moan. Adam Gase needs to be fired, and that's it. And this team sucks, and so forth and so on. I mean, that's just wasteful air. It doesn't do anybody any good. So yeah, you talk about it a little bit, but then you have to also talk about what's really going on and how the coaching staff is trying to build this team. Whether Adam Gase is there or not, if this is Joe Douglas's team and he finds a new coach next year, whatever. We're trying to tell you exactly what's going on, like what's really going on and how these coaches are interpreting what's going on in the field. And that's what we're going to talk about definitely on this show. And this was one of them because you see, look, and I'm not sure Sam Darnold makes that throw either, because we've talked about how Sam Darnold has a hard time throwing accurate, deep passes. But a good quarterback hits that pass, that's a touchdown. First play of the game. Jets are up 7-0. You know how quickly that changes everything. That's the thing that's frustrating when you're a coach. And again, you'll hear it in Gase's comments. It's frustrating because you dial it up, you practice it, you don't make it, the player doesn't accomplish what he's supposed to, and then everybody blames the coach. You know, it's just these are the things that need to occur if this team is going to make the progression you're talking about. That they're never going to get any better if the guys don't start making plays.
Well, coaches can only put players in a position to execute.
Absolutely.
The execution itself obviously falls upon the player. It's like anything. Look, you and I have talked baseball before in the past, right? When a coach makes moves and makes decisions and the player execute and it works out, the coach looks like a genius. When the player doesn't execute and it gets blown up, the coach looks like an idiot, and he's the one that gets questioned as to why you made that move, even if on paper it looked to be the right move.
Well, you know, like yesterday, they had that Tennessee 2-point conversion late in the game.
Yep.
If Watson doesn't get the ball batted down on the 2-point, the guy's right there. He's ready to catch the ball. The game is over. But now people are, you know, some people are criticizing whether he should have went for 2. And right there, it was dialed up perfectly. Guy bats down the pass. Watson didn't. Now, nobody's going to blame Deshaun Watson, but still, Deshaun Watson allowed the ball to get batted down, or you could say the opposition made a play. The fact is, the coach staff made, I thought, was the right call. The players did not execute. The team loses the football game.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, so whether or not the Jets would have won the game if they took a 7-0 lead, I'm still
Probably
relatively doubtful. But clearly your mindset is a whole lot different than getting stopped. And then it was almost in rapid succession that Miami got the ball, and it almost seemed like it went boom, 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 went down the field, touchdown, touchdown, touchdown.
Yep. So after that, he also overthrew Berrios once and threw the ball like out of bounds. It's like, where is that pass going? He was. I didn't even
don't know where a lot of the passes he threw.
A lot of passes were out of bounds.
But also part of it, as you mentioned, they lost 2 offensive linemen, and every time he looked up, it seems like he had a dolphin in his lap.
Absolutely.
Breaking down the pocket.
Absolutely.
So it wasn't like, you know,
it was half and half.
Look, you want to Right. So part of it's on the quarterback, part of it's on the offensive line. It's a chicken and egg situation. Granted, he clearly was not comfortable back there, although obviously the first play of the game he had the opportunity to make the throw and didn't. It wasn't a pass rush issue that caused the problem. It was a poor throw issue.
Yeah, I mean, and thinking about this, this is probably a quarterback, not even probably. I think this is definitely a quarterback that should be on a team, a winning team that has a really good offensive line that needs a backup. He doesn't fit here because the Jets offensive line, you take Becton out and they're below average again, and he can't move. He's got no mobility whatsoever. And when he can't move around in the pocket, forget it. So he's just a bad quarterback. So I just, it's just not making much sense of why he's here, but he is. And once again, by the way, the Jets lose without Sam Darnold. And then we actually.
So let me just touch on one thing you mentioned though. So you talk about the offensive line, right? So when we talk about team evaluation, right, part of what Douglas did and brought in guys around it to improve the offensive line. Most of them are only on 1-year deals, which granted is could be, if you talk about coalescing as a unit and as a team, they start losing guys who are on 1-year deals. The viewpoint of playing for the team is going to be a whole different mindset. And part of it's going to get into the evaluation process that Joe Douglas did. And what we've seen so far in the offensive line is, I don't know about you, but other than Becton, I'm not quite sure if there's any pieces you're going to want to really bring back next year. Maybe one or two, but you may now be looking to rebuild that offensive line all over again, which is clearly not ideal.
No, and that's where there's a rebuild. Yeah, I agree. I think that it's about.
Well, part of it was to hopefully get guys that you got for a year and say, oh, wait, these are guys that could be building blocks, or, oh, wait, I've hit on 3 out of 5. Now I need to just supplement, as opposed to now what we think with Becton, we have one. I don't know where 2, 3, 4, and 5 are, or if any of these guys that are there now could be 2, 3, 4, or 5.
I think there's capability of 3. I think the problem is like what we're seeing with the Jet, all 5 of the linemen that are playing with different teams and they're having success with those teams doesn't make them good players. But you put them all together, so I think that it's a matter of finding out, besides, Becton, which are the guys, I mean, I don't look at them and say that I necessarily think that they're playing terribly like last year, where you could just, oh, that guy's awful. Oh, that guy's just terrible. I don't know yet. I think there's still a ways to go. We're not seeing any continuity to be able to really judge it yet. Hopefully they'll stay together for half a season and we'll have a better gauge. I think he's got a couple of veterans in there he could sign long-term or for another 2 or 3 years and you would hope, of course, that these draft picks that he's going to have and some other free agent moves are definitely going to be, again, I would guess maybe 2 new offensive linemen, maybe 1 rookie and maybe 1 new better free agent. So
I hope so, because as we all know, look, I mean, we're going to go into it in terms of the rest of the team, in terms of wide receivers and tight ends, etc. Without a front, right? You build your team from the inside out to a certain extent, and the offensive and defensive lines need to be key drivers. And right now, both are failing to a certain extent. But the offensive line clearly isn't getting the kind of push that we need to see, either on run-out opportunities or to pass protection.
Yeah, and it's a lot more noticeable, of course, when you have a player like Flacco back there. Okay,
who doesn't have mobility at all.
It's a disaster. All right, so then when Flacco did make a couple of passes, then Ryan Griffin, who's been just as awful as Herndon, picked the DB on the play. So what was about to be a first down catch becomes a 3rd and 12 at the 34. Then McGovern has the botched snap, and now they're out of field goal range. So again, player, instead of just getting a little bit in the way, he picks the DB. That's not how it's drawn up, Ryan. Not what the coaches taught you. And I don't know, maybe they need a new tight ends coach. Williamson then got called.
Well, as you mentioned, again, we talked a lot about Chris Herndon. Here is the damning stat from yesterday. Chris Herndon, 0 targets.
Yeah, I don't know.
How is that happening?
Yeah.
Now, granted, a lot of it has to be placed the blame on Herndon because he has clearly not been good, but somehow you have to find a way to get a guy who's athletic like that incorporated into your pass game. From what we saw the first couple weeks, he was into block a lot because they were struggling. You're struggling to generate any kind of offense. Do something. Now, granted, we saw the drop he had that week that basically blew a first down and blew a shot to make a run. But maybe it's a mental thing. But somehow you have to find a way to get through to him because he's got way too much talent that is just being absolutely wasted this season.
Well, again, though, I think that's also up to the quarterback, and it's up to the offensive line to give the quarterback time to find his tight end, and it's up to the tight end to get open. So I'm not looking at the film. I don't know. Gase didn't say anything negative. He seemed to talk the kid up, and he wants to see these kids get in a position to play better. And so I don't think it was we're gonna make sure that he takes the week off kind of deal. I just think that it was. Again, I think those three things: Flacco, maybe Herndon himself, and the offensive line if he didn't get the ball. As far as Vincent Smith, it was good to see him back. Not that Joe Flacco knows that he's actually back. He tried to throw the ball to him once, and he threw the ball behind Smith for an interception. Perine dropped the pass, which...
Well, that's a problem, right? But talk about the reaction that happened after the pass drop. This is what concerns me the most. You and I both know this team is going nowhere this year, right? We also know that Gase is also fighting for his job, and he has a comfort factor with Frank Gore. But taking the guy out and then saying, well, we took him out because he dropped the pass and we didn't want him to lose confidence. You're taking him out of the game and not putting him back into later. Then you're going with Gore at the end of the game. Why aren't you giving the guy the ball? Not even to say passes, but on run, feed him the ball.
He
is much more explosive than Gore. But that's 7 carries. That's it.
Well, Ty Johnson had 4.
Half, even though
and right. Gore had what? But again, 11, 12?
11, right. But it should be flipped.
Well, it's not going to happen. But it's not going to happen in one game. It's not.
But they didn't use him much in the second half.
Oh, it's just not. Again, it's. But as Gase said, you go into a game plan. You don't game plan down 24-0. You don't game plan down 20-0. When you're down 21-0, all the plans that you put together to try to get these runners in the offense, you have to scrap because that's not what they're designed to do, to be in games when you're down 21-0. So that's the reason why he didn't get as many carries as he did. But again, it's not like Gore had 18 carries and Perine had 4. So it's one game, and he'll get more carries. But hey, he drops the pass. He's just got to make sure just catch the pass next time. That's all. We don't want to see that continue because Herndon has already proven that it could be contagious. Williamson and Hewitt had personal foul calls again. Yeah, I love those guys. I love them. Williamson and Hewitt, buddies, together again. Personal foul.
Was it Hewitt or Burgess that got burnt on the 44-yard play to the tight end down the middle also where he was out of position?
Burgess is no longer on the team, remember?
No, sorry, it may have been. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was Hewitt. It was in the wrong position.
I'm sure it was.
In the middle of the 2 deep cover zone, and middle was wide open. Shaheen went right down the field for a 40-something yard play.
Yep, Hewitt and Williams. Neither one will be starting for us next year. I mean, Williamson has a better chance because you bring in Mosley next year, but also a lot's going to depend on what they do with Owasu, the Baltimore dude, who hasn't been playing either, even though, as we talked about, we think he's better as an outside guy. And Cashman also returned, which was nice. Hopefully, look, if you take Cashman off IR, that means he's healthy. He's ready to play. I want to see Cashman, because he started when the season began. Williamson was out, but I want to see Cashman, just like with Perine. I want to see Cashman getting more snaps than Hewitt. Period. End of story.
Okay.
It's like a Hewitt with 100% snaps. Disgusting. All right, and then did you see the one where Flacco, he was getting a little bit pressure, and then he threw the ball out of bounds, and you looked at Crowder was sitting there all by himself. Like the DB was like 7 yards ahead of him. If you would have just thrown the ball to Crowder, he could just make one guy miss and pick up a first down. He just chucked the ball out of bounds.
Yep. It was a poor game all the way around from Joe Flacco.
Oh, my goodness. It's like, how many years you've been in this league? And then he grounded the ball that cost the team, 10 yards? And then Ficken had to kick a 55-yarder. And, of course, you knew he missed it. It destroyed his perfect record. He misses it. Flacco missed an open Ty Johnson again. And you talked about the 28-yard loss on the sack.
So here's the question. At that point in time, why aren't you putting Mike White into the game?
I think in the fourth quarter when the game, I forget where it was. I think it was right around the time when he did one of those really stupid things, late third, early fourth. That's exactly what I said. Because I can understand why Flacco's starting, but at some point, it's like, dude, come on. I mean, it's already 24-0. What are you worried about? It can't get worse.
And here's the other thing: you got 2:30 to go in the game. You have 4th and 3 from the 7-yard line. Here's a hint: I'm not saying it's great. I'm not saying it's wonderful. It's window dressing. Kick the bloody field goal. Don't get shut out.
You know what the crowd, what the fans would say if he did that, though.
Yeah, but I don't care. You're
I know.
So you're not winning that game anyway. I know. Not that 24-3 looks a lot better, but holy crap! Just don't get shut out. You know when the last time they got shut out in Miami was?
No, I don't want to. No, don't even say it.
No, you know it. Yep, you know exactly what it was. That was the last time they got shut out in Miami.
And look, you do realize that if they score and get the 2-point conversion, they're only down 2 scores and two-point conversions.
Yeah, with 2:38 to go in the game. I mean, look, there's realism and
that's
fantasy.
Why you're not.
That's not even fantasy. That's just going crazy.
The good news coming out of this game, besides Marcus May's tremendous interception, was it was nice to see that Huff's getting playing time and he had a sack. So that's good to see. Because remember, didn't we talk about the kid from Vegas? What was it? Last year, 2 years ago, when we were talking about priority free agents, and it was like, oh, the Jets look like they may get him. They're real close. The kid Malik Reed, and then he went to Denver. Yep. He just had 2 sacks yesterday against the Patriots.
Yeah, well, look.
Anyway,
they have a major hurdle to climb to get any free agents to come. Oh, we still need to discuss Le'Veon Bell.
Okay.
We haven't discussed it.
Le'Veon Bell. What would you like to talk about?
Well, again, I haven't gotten your view on any of it because we weren't able to have a conversation last week. So I don't know your view on the entire Bell
I think it was
saga.
I think it was the right move. I mean, he followed Jamal Adams, the script. And as soon as he did, I actually was surprised how quick it happened. But they must have been already thinking about it. I actually was surprised that they cut him in a way. I thought that maybe they'd try to trade him, but maybe, I have to believe
they tried. I think they couldn't find a taker, and I think part of this honestly was driven by the $8 million insurance the injury that he potentially was going to get if he got hurt, and the Jets didn't want to necessarily be on the hook for that.
And I think one of these, I mean, Joe Douglas too is probably at the point at this time right now, and you saw the clip of him in the game yesterday where anything that happens that is going to really go, irk him, he's going to make a move. It's like, all right, I've had enough. I'm not taking this anymore. And we can't trade you. You're gone. We tried to trade you, and all of a sudden you come out and say this stuff. Okay, next day you're gone, or next second you're gone. I have enough of you. So I'm okay with it. What are you going to do? It opens up playing time, not only for P. Ryan, but also hopefully for Ty Johnson. Because Ty Johnson could very well be for the offense of what Franklin Myers has been so far in the defense. These are middle round players that were cut because the teams that they were playing with had an abundance of players at those positions. Now the Jets desperately need team speed. And as you can tell, it's funny. The first time he ran the ball, when he got to 10 yards, I was like, who the hell is that? Where'd that come from? Where'd that run come from? I didn't see the running back on this team go that fast, and I don't know how long. And it was, it's Ty Johnson. Oh, okay. So the kid's fast. He's got talent, and let's hope now that he'll get an opportunity with Le'Veon Bell gone to make a difference. All right, now let's go over the clips. We're going to start.
Wait, there's one more thing we should get into, and we should say fairly well to Steve McClendon.
Yes.
Who was a guy that played fairly well. And look, the Jets didn't get a heck of a lot at all. I mean, people are like, oh, they got a 6th rounder. Yes, they gave up a 2nd rounder the following year. The pick isn't to 2022. What they did was they did a solid for a player who was a captain on this team, who was a leader in the locker room, and they're giving him an opportunity. And by the way, McClendon couldn't wait to get out of there. He drove 4 hours that night from Miami to get to Tampa.
Great job by Joe Douglas to make the move to let him go. I also think that that's an important message that you're sending to the veterans on the team. So, if you want to be like these guys, that's a different story. But we're gonna, and there's still a couple weeks left. So I don't really know who else they could trade though. Could they trade anybody?
Crowder could be somebody of interest.
Crowder would be a really good move if you can get a good draft pick because they have Berrios now.
Right. They have to get a
That
good
would
draft
be a
pick,
real,
right?
yeah. That
Like, so
what
in
would
my
you
opinion,
want? What would you
McClendon,
accept?
my opinion, McClendon, you gave him away.
Oh yeah,
Right? You got a
absolutely.
6th
Yeah,
round
give
pick,
him away.
great, from Tampa, who in 2022, right? And you gave up a 2023 7th rounder. In essence, it's a wash, in my
Sure.
opinion, potentially to an extent. 3rd rounder,
So if they got a 4th, you'd be disappointed.
probably, yeah. Especially if it's late 4th. Is it anything
3rd.
great?
I think 3rd's good. Yeah, 3rd. 4th, I think, yeah, you're getting to. I mean, Crowder's a good player.
If it's a good team, you're going to be looking at late in the rounds.
Yeah,
Remember,
I'd say 3rd too. I might. Look, and I'm definitely starting a conversation with a 2nd, and I'm trying hard for a 2nd. But if it
Right.
winds up being, well, all right, well, we'll give you a 3rd, then boom, make the deal. You got Berrios, he's a lot cheaper, and you're not at this point in the rebuild where you need a high price slot receiver. You just don't. Not a guy at least that's not, a 6'5". Crowder's a first down guy. That's pretty much what he is. And I think Berrios can fill his shoes.
And let's discuss the elephant in the room that came out on ESPN last week and didn't know your opinion. So obviously the guy put together proposed trades, and one of them was trading Sam Darnold to Indianapolis. Because what we've sought out look, Philip Rivers played well yesterday,
Wait.
but he's been god awful at times before the deadline.
Hell
you really
no, that's
think you're
not
tanking
happening.
for the future? I'm throwing it out there because the conceptual idea was thrown out there.
Absolutely
okay.
ridiculous.
I'm just
okay. Not happening. That's partly the reason Adam Gase is still here. It's like Gase is not going anywhere. It's gonna be Gase and Darnold. They're gonna more than likely, if they end up with 0 or 1 wins and they get the first pick, they're both gonna be jettisoned out. And if by some miracle the two of them in the second half of the season can find a way where it looks like Gase is making Darnold a franchise quarterback, then they're gonna play. They're gonna be back next year. So
I think I would give you better odds on Darnold being back.
There is no way that if Sam Darnold does well and the team wins 3 or 4 games, that they're not going to seriously consider bringing Gase back.
They may seriously consider it. Let's just say the only thing that Chris Johnson and Joe Douglas has advantage right now is when the Jets have home games, there's no fans in the stands, because that thing would be an embarrassment to watch. You'd have fans with bags on their heads. You'd have more empty seats than you would normally, even though due to COVID, because people would just be embarrassed
and
to
it's
show
another
up.
good reason why there's a rebuild, because look, this is just not a real 100% season. It just isn't. There's no home field advantage.
And there's rebuild, and there's also showing progress. And right now, you and I have both, at least will admit that I don't think we've seen any progress at all.
Well, if it's rebuild, it's 1 year. We're in the first year of the rebuild.
Okay. And what was last year?
Joe Douglas wasn't really here last year. He didn't do anything.
Okay. So how many years are you going to allow Gase to be the coach of this team, though?
You could end up being the coach at the end of this year, and that's it. I said by some miracle, if Darnold and Gase wind up doing really well, then they win 4 or 5 games, then they're going to consider bringing Gase back. I didn't say all these definites, because I'm going to be surprised if Sam Darnold looks like our franchise quarterback by the end of the year. I don't like where it's going. And the only way that happens, of course, everybody's got to stay healthy. It's the only way. Becton's got to stay healthy. Crowder, Perryman, Mims. They all have to stay healthy, because if they don't, this offense has no chance.
And clearly that's happened so far.
Absolutely. So there needs to be a dramatic change for any of that to look like it's possible. Now, I thought that Gase did a really good job explaining in some of these bites what's wrong with the team, and he also didn't throw anyone under the bus. But if you listen and you're following what he's saying, you can understand what he's trying to explain to people. Let's go ahead and start with the first one. Now, this is basically, this is the longest one. It's about a 2-minute clip, and he's going to talk about the advantage in the beginning of the game that they did not take advantage of, I should say, the 2 deep throws to Perryman. He also referenced the first 2 plays again a little bit later on, and also being frustrated that players, in my mind, are not making the plays that he dials up. He also talked about picking up blitzes. We'll get into that. That's the whole deal with the offensive line. and let's go ahead and get it over with.
We didn't take advantage of anything at the beginning of the game. Had some opportunities for some big plays to kind of get everybody jump started. We didn't get that done. Thought defense, I know early, we had some struggles. Did a great job in the second half. We just couldn't get anything going on offense. Too many penalties in the first half really hurt us. We can't have 6 penalties like that in the first half and then 1 in the second. That's definitely got to get cleaned up. We got a lot of things to fix on offense. We just got to make the plays when they're there to be made, and we got to protect the quarterback better. We can't let Joe just be getting teed off on that early in the game.
Take questions.
Adam, it's been kind of the same thing every week about fixing things, and it's not getting fixed. What makes you believe that you can still fix this?
It's different things. It's just, keep running when we got a guy beat. It's making sure when we pick up a blitz, we physically get the guy removed from the hole to where the quarterback doesn't have a guy in his lap. This game was way less mental issues. It was physical. They took advantage of a few things early in the game on some of their pick stunts. They did a good job coming out, and those 3 interior guys set some things up for those guys in the pass rush. And it was tough for our line to pick up, and then we kind of got that settled down, and then losing those 2 guys, and it just kind of started up again.
All right, so start with the first one, and again the obvious one, Flacco, which we've already been over, missing Perryman, who was wide open. And matter of fact, they came back to it the very next play and also underthrew the ball there. So that was a point right off the bat. we practiced this. The play was there. If the dude throws the ball where he's supposed to, that's a touchdown. We got to make sure that we take advantage of those plays, and the Jets are not taking advantage of those plays.
Kind of an age-old story with this team, isn't it? Unfortunately,
yeah, and Gase is sounding awfully old.
Missed opportunities
after 6 weeks. I think he's aged about 10 years.
He does. He looks like he's lost weight, and he looks like he's aged 10 years.
Then we talked about we talked a little bit more about that, but I wanted to get into the blitz pickups because he talked about how they were having a hard time with the blitz pickups by the Dolphins. A couple of things on that. First was not being able for the running back. We've already seen one running back jettison, Balaj, because he's not picking up the blitzes properly. Apparently, doesn't matter who's back there. They're just not picking up the blitz properly, and he didn't think that was anything mental. It was more physical. And now on one side, you can say, well, one team's winning. They're feeling good about themselves. Another team's defeated, even early in the game, and there's no confidence. But then they talk about how practice is great and everybody's fired up. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but to me, I think there's a talent. This is one of a couple of points I want to make with talent. You don't have the talent, and then you're not bringing your physical game, and you're not playing over your head with your hair on fire. You're in trouble, and that's what's going on here. They've got to fix that.
Talent loses out to effort, and blocking and picking. Look, blitz pickup is 2 things. One is clearly recognition of the blitz and having the reaction available to do so. Right? It's not just it's reacting, and it's also anticipating. But more so with that, it also comes down to strength, but also effort. Right? You can become a better blitz pickup if you're put in the effort, even if the guy's bigger than you are. The problem is there are times where you're going to get pancaked, right? That happened in a lot of games I saw yesterday, where the blocking scheme called for a tight end to pick up a defensive lineman, and he was getting destroyed on it. So part of that gets into scheme, and part of it gets into talent, which 2 of the questions we've had this year, from what we've seen so far in terms of both rushing and passing attack, is the scheme and the talent, and both of them combined have been.
Yeah, the bottom line is they have to get more physical on offense. We know they're physical on defense because we're seeing all these penalties, especially the 15-yard variety. They're overcompensating, but offensively they got to get more physical. And then he talked about the stunts. And this is, again, what we try to stress regarding players. They're just not there. When, all right, they had a problem early. They seem to fix it. And then Lewis and Udoka go out. They got to bring in 2 backups, and then they got the problems again. This is what happens. When this is the never-ending story with this team, with the injuries, and it's piles one after another, and you have all these different things going on, and then just when you think you fixed it, you got more injuries, and you got more backups coming in, and these guys aren't gelling with the other guys. It's just a mess. And these are things that you probably don't notice when you're watching the game, but this is a big part of it. Let's talk about this next clip because it has a lot to do with the ridiculousness, once again, of the media when we were watching the game and they decided to take a clip of Gase and Greg Williams before the game. And they seemed to indicate that they were having a heated exchange. Of course, we know what happened earlier in the week, so this had to have been because of Greg Williams and what he said during the week. So let's see what Adam Gase had to say about that.
They caught you on the cameras today in a pregame conversation with Greg that seemed somewhat animated. Did you guys have words, angry words before the game?
Yeah, we were talking about something else, something that was brought to us by the officials that I wasn't real happy about learning an hour and a half before the game.
What was it?
They didn't like the way they were talking about how Connor holds the ball.
Psych. So, yeah. Nice try, guys. It had nothing to do with that. And, this whole thing with the mask, it's another reason I can't stand the masks, because every time they go to the sidelines, I'm looking for expressions or something, and I can't see anything. Like, what are the reactions behind the masks? And I will say this, because this is important for me to say. As much as I've tried to, I guess you could say, stick up for Gase, try to make logic of it, I am really, the one thing that has got to happen if he is going, whether or not he can turn this thing around or not, and maybe he won't, probably won't. One thing I will not miss, and I've repeatedly talked about this for years, these coaches, especially if Gase, we saw it with Bowles. We talked about it with Bowles. You've got to show some emotion. You have got to get, sure. You'll watch somebody make a stupid play, like a veteran make a dumb play. Then you go to Gase, and he's on the next play. And this is why if he says, I'm thinking about relinquishing my play call duties, maybe he should. Not because I think he can't call plays, but because it's time for him to stop worrying about calling plays. And instead, if somebody does something stupid on the field, why don't we show some emotion? Why don't we take that veteran Ryan Griffin or someone like that off the field, put my hand around him on the sidelines, and have a discussion? That's what I get upset about, because I'm not seeing it, and I don't know behind the scenes and I doubt that Adam Gase is a fired up kind of coach. And we need Greg Williams. He can do what he wants to do defensively. He's that type of coach, but we don't need that necessarily. That's fine, but we need our head coach to show some emotion. It is important.
So a couple of things. So defensively, I think we both admit the Jets have not been particularly good. And the hope that we saw last year, based upon what we saw out of a Williams-led defense where he can mix and match and find schemes that work, clearly have not been the case this year. Second, the comment he made the other day with kind of throwing his coach under the bus was clearly one of frustration, also one that should not have been made. So the media following up on it when they supposedly see something on the sidelines doesn't come as a big surprise, because if they didn't, we would call them out for not asking the question. And Gase explained it. The first time he explained it, he didn't give a full answer. He said, hey, it was something that went on before the game. Then they had to follow up and ask him what it was. Now, you have to know that you're going to be asked that question. And if you answer the question with leaving it open-ended as to what it was, somebody should be following up. So he kind of set himself up for that second question by not fully and completely answering the first one. But look, this is a team that's probably fracturing a little bit. This is a team that has issues, as we've seen, that's going up and down the lineup. Offense, defense, special teams have struggled. Look, Bradley Mann has been fine. He's got to get a lot more height on his punts, because I know people have criticized that, great draft pick. He's got a great gross, but a lousy net. part of that net is caused by his line drives, but part of it is the coverage has been horrific. When man is basically your best tackler on the punt returns, there's a big problem there, and some of them are defense breakdowns in terms of the coverage. So there's a whole host of issues running up and down this lineup. So this is a team that's a powder keg right now, and the more they lose, the more that the powder keg is going to build and build until it really explodes. So I'm quite curious to kind of see what happens between the interaction between the coaches and what ends up happening. But look, if everything was hunky dory and Pollyanna, I'd be probably even more concerned. I'm actually a little bit happy that there's a little bit of emotion and guys getting a little bit pissed off and a little bit
We need more
because nobody likes to lose.
we need more.
Nobody likes to lose.
Yeah,
I agree.
and it has to come though. This team, the leaders they have are guys like Flacco and Gore. Those are the types. They don't show it. That's not in their demeanor. And if they're not going to show it, and Darnold ain't going to show it, he's howdy doody. So when your quarterback is howdy doody, and Gore and Flacco are not, they don't lead by a fiery kind of way. It's got to be the coach. Coach's got to do it. And I just, if he doesn't do it like Bowles, remember we talked about it. We thought Bowles started to do it finally the first half of his final year, but it was too late. All right.
And he may end up being a coaching candidate again.
He may, and I think he deserves it because I do think that he learned a lot. It's just that the writing was on the wall by the time that final year came around. Mm-hmm. Okay, now let's get to the final clip, and this is a question that first was posed to Adam Gase regarding his job security.
Adam, are you concerned at all with the results not changing every week, that Christopher might want to make a change?
No, I mean, I'm not even thinking about it. I have to focus on making sure our guys are ready to go when we get back in the building on Monday and Wednesday and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then getting ready for this next game.
Adam, do you worry about your team's mental state? And more than that, do you worry with the losing and everything if they just tuned you guys out?
This locker room, these guys are good. These guys are good guys that work extremely hard. It's frustrating. I mean, when you talk to them on Monday, you can tell. I mean, these guys, they're hurting. They try to do the right thing. They come in, they work. They do a great job of having high energy at practice, trying to get better. I feel like the players are really the ones trying to find a way to flip this thing. I mean, they're taking the lead on this, and we just got to keep grinding and keep trying to find ways to fix those, especially early mistakes, to help flip the game.
All right, so a couple of things on this one, and that is one of them I was talking about talent, and this is another situation with talent. He talks about how he doesn't feel like he's lost the team because the team tries hard. The players, the type of players he has, are good players. They're disappointed. They want to win. They're fighting hard through it in practice, et cetera, and they're angry when they don't succeed and so forth. But hence the word talent. It's great when you bring in a lot of guys. This is what Joe Douglas wants, and he's got guys here that are still here. A lot of it has to do with the fact of who they are, character guys. But character only takes you so far. And that's what you got going on here. You have character guys that should only be playing half the snaps. They should be part-time players. They're being asked to play double the snaps. They're not that good. And they're beating themselves because they want to be better, but they're not. And that's not going to change. Now, some of the players will. I'm not talking about everybody, but a good majority of the players I think he's talking about are the players that just aren't talented enough.
Well, we know there's a lack of talent on this team, and part of that gets into Douglas doing his job as GM, right? And I do think, look, as much as you can give him a pass to a certain extent, I'm also saying I'm not enamored with what I've seen to a certain extent because I don't think that the talent level of this team has been upgraded substantively from where it was last year, even in the draft so far. Granted, very early, but look, Becton clearly we know about. Ashton Davis has been hurt. Hall's been hurt. We wanted more wide receiver talent. Mims has been hurt. They traded down. They got the guy they wanted. They passed. They ended up losing out on Chase Claypool. We see what Claypool's done in Pittsburgh. There's been other, Piron. We don't know what he's going to be in a 4th-round pick. We have a 4th-round pick we wasted on James Morgan. Zuniga, we don't know. So, that until we get to see more, right now I am not necessarily giving Douglas. I'm giving Douglas the benefit of the doubt to a certain extent, but I do think that as this goes on and they struggle more, and you don't see support coming from the guys that you drafted this year, I do think that the calls for Douglas and the questions as to whether or not he is the right guy, even though it's very early, are going to start to get louder and louder. I mean, I think we both don't think Gase is the right coach, but I don't think either one of us really thought Gase was the right coach to begin with before he even got hired.
Well, that
And
all
now we
depends on
haven't-
who, because that's important, is that when Gase's name came about as a coaching candidate, the reason I was okay with it was because of the other guy that was also in the mix, and that was Mike McCarthy.
McCarthy.
And I wanted
Right, well-
nothing to do with McCarthy over Gase. And if it was Gase McCarthy, I was all Gase. That's the reason why. And once that guy becomes my head coach, I am not going to bail on him right away. I'm just not going to do it unless I see things that are just so dumb. And I'm sorry, but that's the one thing that you don't see. You sit there and you go, well, their team just keeps losing, or they make stupid plays. But I don't sit there and go, like we've done with Bowles before and other bad coaches, where you go, what kind of a terrible time management thing is that? Or how could you be so stupid in doing that? Sure, we said that once in a while, and a play here and a play there. We're not calling him out every week for making boneheaded coaching decisions. So, or for the past year and a quarter. So I think that that's why it's important to say who, because that's the next question is if and when Gase is gone, and I think he definitely should ride out the season, like I said, then who's next? Because I don't know if there's a guy that we can just talk about right now and go, oh,
Nope.
That's the guy we want. That's the guy we have to have. Because I'm telling you, you may think it, but it's not so easy to think that if Adam Gase gets fired, that we're bringing in someone better. So you better have a guy in mind, or a couple of guys in mind. And I think that's something that we should probably think about over the next few weeks and start coming up with some potential, okay, well, here's a few guys to keep an eye on, because I don't know if there's just one right off the top of my head where I go, yeah, that's the guy.
Well, I think Eric Bieniemy is going to get a lot of interest again, and he was a
Not
name that was
interested.
mentioned in the past. Okay.
You know why?
Okay.
Never been a head
Is it
coach
Patrick
before.
Mahomes?
Never been a head coach before. Not interested in
Okay.
that.
So wait. So you want a guy who's been a head coach then?
Absolutely.
That worked out well with Adam Gase, didn't it?
Well, it's just, again,
We didn't want Mike McCarthy either, and he was a previous head coach.
no, but that's why this organization definitely needs that. Absolutely.
Okay. So why not go with McCarthy then?
No,
He fits your
I don't want.
qualification as a
Just
previous
because I
head
said I
coach.
wanted a guy that had head coaching experience doesn't mean I'm just going to grab everybody off the street with head coaching experience.
Got it.
Got to
Okay.
be pretty. He has to know what he's doing. It has to be. It
Got it.
has to look like he's someone that you could trust and run through a wall for. So I don't know. Anyway, that is going to wrap it up for this week. Parting shots. What's next week? That is
I think-
Buffalo. This is the
Buffalo.
Buffalo, Kansas City, New England trifecta coming up.
Yep. It should be a fun 3 weeks.
All right. Well, we'll be back probably next
So
Monday.
here's my parting shot. Will the Jets be a 20-plus point underdog to Kansas City?
If Joe Flacco's the quarterback and Becton's out, yes.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
It could be.
I agree.
But
I
if
agree. Some
Darnold's the
people have been
quarterback
talking-
and
some people have been
Becton's
talking about
healthy,
could they be a 30-point underdog?
no, that's ridiculous.
That was 24-0 to a Miami team
Nah,
that's nowhere
that's
near as
ridiculous.
talented as
No.
Kansas City.
No, it's not going to happen.
Okay. I hope you're right.
Yeah. Well, I don't care about the spread. I care about the result.
I don't care either.
Yeah. The result is what I care about.
I think we both kind of figure out what the result is going to be.
That's
before it
why.
happens.
That's why they better get healthy fast, or else it's going to be
Yep.
real embarrassing.
Yep.
All right, Jan. We'll talk to you next Monday.
Sounds good.